Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, WeatherTech, Hum by Verizon, RockAuto.com, State Farm, and Autotempest.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, Brian Robinson.
Hello and welcome to podcast number 181. My apologies for those of you expecting John Davis. You got the B team with you today around the table here. Not from the B team, but we're very honored to have a special guest today, our executive producer and head writer, David Scrivener.
Rare appearance, yes.
Road test producer, Ben Davis.
Hello.
Online content coordinator, Greg Carlos.
Hey.
And podcast producer and the man with all the rules, Joe Lago.
Hi.
And
Fun killer.
The fun police, that's me.
Fun police. So we'll do the normal road test recaps and lightning rounds and viewer questions, all that good stuff. So, Dave, you've just recently driven the Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrofoglio.
Quadrifoglio. We had a nice chance to drive out on the track at Austin at Circuit of Americas. I had my first time driving that track, and I liked it a lot. The car on the track is great. On the street, it's a little stiff for me. If I was maybe 20 years younger, I wouldn't mind the hard seats, but it sounds awesome.
Are those seats real carbon fiber? I saw the footage.
Carbon fiber sports seats. You know, of the bunch of those, they now have the Jags coming out with one. There's a Durango SRT, the Jeep Trackhawk.
I know the AMG stuff.
Yeah, right. I think I'd go for that Durango SRT still, a bunch of them.
Durango SRT.
Save about 20 grand and lose about 15, 20 horsepower, but
and better seats, more comfortable.
better seats for an old guy like me. But the Stelvio sounds great. It really is a rocket ship on the track and handles well. It's like an overgrown Giulia.
Correct. It's almost like a Giulia hatchback.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a lot more car-like. All-wheel drive, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which you can't get an all-wheel drive. Still, Giulia Quadrofoglio.
No, you cannot.
Yeah.
Right, all-wheel drive only comes on the Giulia TI, which is the four-cylinder,
Right.
but the Quadrifoglio doesn't
You can only
have
get
it.
rear-wheel drive. Correct.
I assume that Jag F-Pace SVR will have all-wheel drive. And Maserati has the Levante Trofeo coming out with 590 horsepower, which is pretty stout.
You are full of high-performance SUV knowledge.
I love them, man.
So, but is it worth 80 grand? Like, I was editing the quick spin video for it. I'm like, this is cool.
Worth
This
is what
fun.
you'll pay for it, pal. Yeah, there's a butt for every seat.
I guess.
Every wallet. So that's why they make more than one car.
I mean, what's like a base Stelvio go for?
I would imagine
Somewhere 48,
50 probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty then. Well, I guess
Uh-huh.
if you love
Pull
Alphas,
your
that's
trailer
the way.
with, man.
I doubt you can
I
pull
mean,
much
it just
trailer.
has more cachet than a Jeep.
Well,
The
right.
Jeep's more powerful. It's just so over the top all the time. I'm not sure I could.
Tell us about the track, because I haven't driven on that track. I think everyone I know
I've
has
been driven on
that
it
track,
in a
yeah.
Bentley Mulsanne, I think, of all things. Or
Oh,
I
dear.
forget which one it was. But
It was nice being able to follow someone. I couldn't quite get the hang of the track and
I heard it's
the
pretty
few number of laps we
tricky,
had
yeah.
to figure out, okay, which corner's next and where does it go? There's some blind stuff, and you're like, oh, crap, that was left, not right. And so following someone helps a lot to learn it quickly.
It's a pretty track.
Pretty track, good high-speed corners and some high-speed straights and things. But
Yeah.
Right on.
All right.
right on.
Moving on. Also, Dave,
Also, Dave, also a racetrack.
with a Porsche 911 GT3 RS.
RS. That one we just got back from like 2 weeks ago. It was at the Nurburgring's sprint course, which is their stadium course. The main track was open to the public that day, and there was literally everybody and their brother out there with every kind of car you can imagine.
He said they're like
I'm glad we had
like
the track to
That's
ourselves.
exactly what you see on all the YouTube
Yeah,
videos.
there was, guys on bikes two up with passing the Fiat Pandas, and it's like, oh, God, man.
He said there's
I'm
like
over
delivery trucks on there.
Delivery vans, Toyota limousines, just you name it. I haven't seen any buses, but I've heard buses go out there too. But the GT3 RS is pretty much as close as you can get to a race car in a 911 in a street car, except for the mandated exhaust emissions and that tune the intake for low end torque and stuff. It could be the race car. The
They doubled the amount of downforce, right?
Yeah, they put
few more
NACA ducts.
horsepower.
They described in detail how a NACA duct works. It's a prescribed shape. NACA ducts are always the same shape. I didn't know this, but
That's why they're called NACA ducts.
NACA ducts.
Right.
This is not NACA
Generic
plus
ducts.
2 or
Right.
whatever. So it channels air down through, also cools the brakes, and adds a bunch of downforce for better turning grip and throughout the corners and stuff. And
How much power do those decals down the side add?
that's
Because they're pretty gaudy.
the-
I'd have that.
the
That's an
ego
option,
stripes.
right? You got to be able to
Gotta be
get
an
rid of
option.
those.
The bigger the letters, the
the
faster
Visoc
it goes. Right?
package adds the carbon fiber hood and things, and a little more aggressive stuff.
Now, how is this different than the GT3 we had at Roebling?
It's 20 more horsepower and more downforce.
PDK only?
PDK only. We had a stick shift at Roebling, right?
No, but I drove the stick shift
yeah.
in Spain.
Okay.
But you can get that in the GT3 standard.
But the RS gets rid of the stick shift.
And they take some weight,
you
take
know,
some weight out.
0.2 of a
as well.
second faster than the regular GT3, which is wow. I beat you by a car length, dude.
So would you rather have that? We have a 911 Turbo Cabrio, Turbo S Cabrio in right now for like the same price. Which would you rather have?
I'd take the GT3 RS. I
Really?
like a Cabrio and a Porsche. It just reminds me of someone's kept woman. Would drive that.
I don't know.
Getting the PG-13 rating on this one.
Oh dear.
Any other GT3 comments?
Well, you drove the GT2 RS too.
I did. And I
Like-
followed one of those on the track at Nurburgring this time. They had lead follow. And
Yeah, and
you
obviously
hit the
that's
main straight, and the guy just disappeared from me with 200 more horsepower. I was like, where'd he go?
So, what's the engine difference in a 2 versus a 3?
It's a,
Thanks
it's
for
a
asking
four,
that question.
4 liter,
Sorry.
4 liter in the GT3 RS, and I think the
Naturally
GT2
aspirated.
RS
also
naturally
turbo.
aspirated,
Yeah.
is the smaller engine but turboed with 700 horsepower.
Yeah.
And
So-
it's just it shows the top end.
How-
It just went away from me.
I guess my question would be, and I would probably answer it one way, but how do you choose between those two? I mean, like why? Like who's the GT2 RS for, and who's the GT3 RS for, or GT3? I mean, 'cause,
Porsche
like,
has 24 varieties of 911,
Yeah.
roughly. And you can tailor it to any skill level, any purpose, like street driving, track driving, full-out racing, track day. I guess the Porsche dealership would kind of guide you through what are you going to do with the car, how good can you drive, and you have talent or just money.
How much money do you have?
What can you afford?
GT2 would be,
GT2 RS, we
do you
were
want the most
chasing a
power?
918 Spider on the track. It's comparable with that, except for top end, I guess. GT2 is a real handful. It requires some real skill to drive it to the limit.
That's what
3 RS is a bit more forgiving.
Having not driven the GT2, I'd have to imagine that you get into a GT3 or probably even a GT3 RS because you more or less like driving a car, more of an experience of the 9,000 RPM red line. It's a
and
naturally
like you're
aspirated
driving the
engine.
car. You're not hanging on for dear life. Like
Right.
you would be in
The
some of these
torque's
big
not going to
cars.
destroy you. It's only got 345
GT2 will
pound-feet.
bite you in a heartbeat. I
Yeah.
spun one in the rain, but I blame the rain.
Well, it happens.
But like you say, there's so many different 911s, and you can add so many options to whichever one you buy. You can come up with your own concoction.
Virtually any combination you
Yeah,
want.
plus Porsche loves to sell you
GT2 RS
options.
is a pretty hairy beast. It's pretty serious driving there. Love to have one, but I don't know where I'd use it.
I'll be lucky if I can get a Cayman.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's the old Jeep. Thanks. I'll just drive your guys.
Well, moving on to something even more exciting, if you could imagine it. Currently, those of you that watch the show know that we have a long-term fleet of cars that we keep for about a year's worth of time and report on them throughout the year. Currently, we have 4 such vehicles in our fleet. We have a Kia Niro hybrid. We have a Volkswagen Beetle Coast convertible. And we have a Honda Odyssey and a Subaru Crosstrek. So we thought we'd take some time and just kind of run down what our experience has been like with these cars, what we like about them, what we don't like. Who's ready to
I'll jump in.
in?
Jump in, Joe.
Go for it, Joe.
I'll start just because it's first on the sheet. The Kia Niro, after winter ended, our miles per gallon definitely went up. That was something we talked about on a previous podcast, cold weather making the hybrid system a little bit less efficient. It's up to 42.5-ish right now. The thing that impresses me about it is just the amount of features. I'd hate to see the window sticker, but the amount of features Kia has in that: the heated seats, cooled seats,
Wireless
heated wheel,
phone charger.
yeah, wireless phone. So you don't really expect that kind of stuff, and then you get totally become a spoiled automotive journalist, and you get in like another car, and you're like, oh, this doesn't have cooled seats, But so it's not fast, but if you've got a long way to go and you don't really care, it's a great little car to be in because it's got enough features to keep you comfortable, and you're not spending a lot on gas, but don't try and race anyone.
I said before, it's kind of grown on me since we had it here. I wasn't real impressed with it when we first got it, but it's grown on me some. One thing I get frustrated with is, every hybrid car always has some type of display that lets you know where your power is coming from, the battery, for the engine, or a combination of the both. And the display in it, if you watch it, and even the EV logo in the gauge panel, is extremely optimistic. Like, you're driving in the EV mode, and you hear the gas engine kick on, and it's running, and the EV light stays on for like a good couple seconds.
You're like, you're lying to me.
Right, yeah. So it's giving people not a proper picture. Other hybrids we had, like the Camry hybrid we just had on, it was like immediately. As soon as the gas engine kicked on, the light went out. Here, I don't know if it's just bad programming or if they're trying to fool you into thinking you're getting a little more EV range. I'm not sure.
No, it wouldn't be a good job fooling, though, because you got to be able to hear it.
Hear the gas.
Right, yeah.
I'll take the Odyssey because I actually do take that a lot.
Minivans.
I love minivans. That's,
You've been doing home improvement
that's no
stuff
secret.
too,
Yeah,
haven't you?
I just built a fence, so I've been hauling some lumber, and I got 22 8-foot 2x4s in that Odyssey without much of a problem. A ton of pickets and things like that. It's just there's certain things that I don't love about it, and it's just mostly the infotainment system because
That hates me too.
yeah, it's pretty looking and it's modern looking, but the functionality is just not there. But the functionality of the van is just awesome. So, and it still drives great. The 10-speed's still holding up pretty well for the most part. Sometimes you can feel it lag a little bit, but we've noticed it much worse with a lot of other high gear transmissions that we've had. So yeah, I'm still digging the Odyssey.
I have one gripe on it. It's got a sport mode button in the transmission, but when you touch it, it's green when you put it in the drive, and it's green when you tap it into sport. The only way you know you're in sport mode is there's an S vaguely on the dash somewhere on the gauge cluster. It shows up, but you could easily put it in sport and not know that you're in there until you're actually saying, "Hey, this is way more revs than I should be having casually."
Lost 5 miles.
Well,
per
it
gallon.
requires hitting the
Less
drive
3 hours.
twice, though.
Yeah, but that's
You would
super
know.
easy to do, especially when it doesn't change colors when you touch it, and you got all kinds of stuff there. It's really not that hard to do. Your kid could reach over and do it. You wouldn't even know, unless you're super aware of that S in the dash. Other than that, yeah, it's my only gripe. And it doesn't seem like the armrest is going down far enough.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
It used to, but it doesn't anymore.
It's
weird.
odd.
Yeah, it's a little high in its lowest setting. But moving on to the Beetle.
I knew you'd be Mr. VW. Mr. VW here is going to bring it up.
I love that car. The stereo is insane. The seats are super comfortable, but I find myself having that in the sport mode selection as well for the gears
On
to
purpose
hit me
or
just right.
accidentally? All right.
Yeah, the default drive seems a little tame for me, especially off of starts. It seems to have a little bit of turbo hesitation in there, so I just keep it in sport the whole time.
You do like that.
I do. There's a lot of glare on the TFT screen when the top's down. You can't see it at all hardly most of the time. So they just put a little finish on that to reduce glare or upgrade it to the new system that we've seen a lot of stuff.
Right, yeah, that would we have a Golf in that has the VW's newest system in it?
Beetle's on the chopping block, so I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, they've already announced they stopped production on that.
Pretty car, nice package in the Coast. I like it.
I'll jump in on the cross track unless anyone has any other Beetle comments.
Nope,
I've driven
haven't
that a lot just the last couple of days. Half the time I'm driving the car, I don't even feel like I'm driving the car because that thing, it's got the, I guess, steering to keep you in the lane, but it is way proactive. I mean,
The Crosstrack?
Like, who's driving here, me or you?
I turned that off, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like yanking the wheel on you all the time, and then it flashes off because it feels like you're not paying attention. I don't know if I keep too light of a touch on the wheel or what.
I'm
but
surprised you keep that system on. I almost turn it off on pretty much everything I get into now because
Immediately.
I realize we're supposed to test these things, and I will say I give it a chance, but it doesn't stay on even if it works well. Even if it's the best system out there, I still turn it off because I just can't stand
Still
it.
want to drive the car myself. Thanks.
In that Crosstrek, though, once you turn it off, it doesn't come back on every time you turn the car on, does it?
I haven't driven it enough.
Well, the Crosstrek has the what is it? The warning and the actual assist. So the
Right.
warning just beeps at you, and I turn that off. But the one that actually does a little bit of the steering, depending on the car, I'll leave that on. I don't. We had a Pacifica that had that, and I actually kind of liked the Chrysler system. It was a little less intrusive, I thought. But but I drove the Crosstrek I think maybe once or twice, and it was like right after we got rid of the last Crosstrek we had. And it's interesting. You don't often get to compare an old car directly to a new one, and you know, all the different things that should have been made better were better, and my biggest gripe was those teeny tiny little radio knobs were replaced with like ones that are big enough you can actually use them now. But
The weird thing with Crosstreks is, and we've had quite a bit of them lately, some I can't get comfortable in at all, and then some I jump in and I'm comfortable right away, and it stays that way.
it's like
And
the
this
exact,
is one of the comfortable ones to me for whatever reason.
I think it's all in
on the
your
last
hand.
one we had
Could
in
be.
the 17, everyone complained about like borderline unsafely underpowered it
That was
was.
I think that was my comment.
This one's got like it's
It's
not
dangerously
much.
underpowered.
Better, but
This one's got a couple more horsepower, not much. I mean, is it the same deal? I mean,
pretty
I
much.
still feel the same way about it. It's
Turning
just,
left in a busy intersection is floor it and pray.
Yeah, you really have to know what the car can do.
I will say it does seem like the mapping for the throttle is maybe a little more aggressive. I don't think the car is like any faster. I just think maybe the throttle is with the
A little
pedal.
more responsive, perhaps.
it does
Yeah.
have a few more horsepower.
Yeah. So
And it's
And-
better than the one. It's definitely better than the 2017 we had. It was a 16 that we had.
17.
Yeah, I would say it's like Joe said. Pretty much everything about it is better. It looks better. The inside is more
New
comfortable.
improved.
but
Pretty color, as Dave has mentioned before off camera.
a 2.0 T model, a turbo model, would be a nice addition, though, I think. Use the same engine that's in the regular WRX, not the SDI. I think that would be a nice.
264 horsemen.
Yeah, I think that would be a nice touch. And I think they'd sell plenty of them.
Even if
Who
it was
knows?
detuned a little bit.
It's gotten
Right.
bigger as well. I parked it next to a Forester over the weekend, and it's like almost as big as a Forester. But
It's long.
I guess there's no Forester coming out, so I guess that'll change.
That'll get bigger, too.
That is the new shape. I mean, it's just going to be a bunch of people competing against that.
Across the board, apparently, right?
Yeah, you got
Focus Active,
Focus Active. You have.
which Dave's trying to segue us into our next
VW
section
Alltrack.
here, I think.
I'll let Dave segue because he
Man,
drops awesome
somebody
segues and
just
people
ruined
trample
that.
all over him like last time.
We need John.
I was
back.
trying to jump in there, Dave, but everyone kept talking. So anyway, what Dave was alluding to is our lightning round question, which is a long one, so bear with me. Don't turn us off just yet. Looks like I'll be using my 30 seconds just to read through this thing. Ford CEO Jim Hackett recently announced the company will not invest in next generations of traditional Ford sedans for North America, meaning there will be no next-gen Fiesta, Fusion, or Taurus for the U.S. market. Ford will focus on trucks, SUVs, and crossover, while the future car lineup will only include the Mustang and Ford Focus Active, which is a raised Focus similar to the Crosstrek. So we've talked about how smaller automakers like Mitsubishi and even Fiat Chrysler America have stopped building sedans in favor of crossovers. But what are your reactions to a larger automaker like Ford doing it? Dave?
I think it makes perfect business sense for Ford to say, you know what, our highest profit vehicles are the trucks, light trucks. Let's stick with those. I guess you can compare sales numbers from sedans to SUVs and crossovers, and what's selling the best. If it's who's going to miss the Fiesta or Fusion or Taurus sedan, really, amongst our enthusiast friends here? Anybody going to miss those?
Just the the
missed
high
it.
performance models
Yeah, I like the Taurus SHO for sure.
and the Fiesta.
ST.
Yeah,
Well, those are hatches.
Focus RS.
I don't think what size the company is, if it makes business sense.
Hey, your
That's
time is up, Dave. We'll move on to Ben Davis.
See ya.
That's embarrassing.
The Gong Show.
Yeah, I agree with Dave. It makes sense, and it's not like these. I mean, these cars are still going to be available other places in the world, and I wouldn't be surprised if in the back pocket they're always making modifications to keep them legal in the U.S. so they could easily bring them back because trends change, let's face it. If trends change, they could easily bring them back if they had to, I'm sure.
Right.
Well, you still have 8 seconds.
I'll give it to Dave if you want to finish something up.
So thanks.
All right, Greg, you get some bonus time.
Yeah, to that point, Ben, I wouldn't be surprised if they did an about face a year or two down the road and said, oh, well, we're going to bring them back because people started buying them again. Another journalist friend of mine had a pretty good article about it and was commenting that so many enthusiasts are upset that they're doing away with it, but we're to blame because we're just not buying them.
Yeah.
They're good cars. They're just fine. But if you're going to complain, go out and buy a new sedan and then
Blame with your wallet.
right. I mean, we're the ones not buying the sedan, so that's why it's happening.
We are. We're just buying Civics and GTIs and stuff.
Right. And I was gonna make the same point Greg did, that there's a certain amount of hypocrisy among auto journalists. We all talk about how amazing the Fusion Sport was. How many of us bought one?
How many journalists buy cars? Period, Joe.
Well, right.
point.
I think the
drive
we of
140 of your
enthusiasts
cars
and
a
just
year.
Anybody there's a lot of people who, sorry to jump in on you.
You got 12 seconds.
There's a lot of people who aren't journalists or enthusiasts who are complaining about it, at least from what I see on social media, who own crossovers.
But
and don't own
everybody has an
sedans.
excuse. Everybody has, I've got a dog, or I like to go camping once a year.
It's
or
a reason.
Well,
Like Dave said, it's a business decision. People aren't buying them.
Buy the car you want.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to see these cars go overseas because they'll probably be built up to performance specs for Europe and stuff like that. And they'll be slowly cars that will desire to get back over here again that we don't have. There'll be some kind of
Buy a good
Taurus
used one.
RS or something like that.
It's
Something
cyclical.
cool.
do you think what will happen with small trucks will happen where when there's a vacuum in the market, then suddenly everybody will be like, oh, wait, we need to fill it, with the Chevy Colorado and those stuff. People will be like, wait, there's a vacuum. Now we need to come out with a new model, So I don't know if we'll see that, but
We'll talk about that in another
Crossover.
podcast.
the cross-under instead of the crossover.
Viewer question from Derek via email asks, what happens to the vehicles after MotorWeek road tests or long-term tests them?
It should be
Good
scrapped.
question, Derek.
Person comes and takes them away from us.
The Tooth Fairy.
They disappear. I don't know.
Well, pre-production ones, don't
Especially
they
if
get
it's a
crushed?
sedan.
Some of the pre-production models get crushed. They get
Crash tested.
The production car will get sold as executive demos sometimes down the road.
John has bought one.
Test mules.
I bought one. One of our Mitsubishi Galant we had. I bought.
Wow.
My first car I bought was a Galant GSX. That was a test car.
Didn't you get a Suburban too?
Not a test car.
But and we should make Derek. We wanted to tell you also, we're not the only people who drive these cars. I mean, they do the rounds a lot of the times
They get about 12,000 miles put on them from various journalists, and they're pulled out of the fleet at that time.
Hard miles.
Hard miles. Depends upon the car. I mean, people aren't ragging out the. I guess they are.
the
Pretty much
Kia
anything.
Niro. But I know the Kia Niro that's our long-term car was. Well, we think, I suppose you could check the VIN, but we think it was the same car we tested for our road test, and then it did a round, and then came back to us as a long-termer. We
Well,
think.
finish off its service in the fleet.
I've
Yeah.
heard they could also end up back at the manufacturer as test mule bodies to drop experimental engines in and stuff like that. And do
Or you could see
testing.
what stuff broke on the cars, and they could do research and be like, oh, well, we didn't expect this part to wear out so soon.
I know the Porsche 918 Spider we tested in Georgia, the blue one you and I drove, is now the Peterson Museum on display.
Is that right?
Porsche
Is there
still
a
owns
picture
it.
of you next to it?
No, there
should
should
be.
be.
That
Should be.
right, should be. Yeah.
Porsche still has the car. It's a
I
prototype
want to go
car.
sign it. Come on.
Yeah. I've asked to borrow it back again for a couple of weeks this summer.
They should put a little plaque. This car was driven by Dave.
Driven by
Scrivener
Dave Scrivener
of
Greg
MotorWeek.
Carlos.
Well,
As
Derek,
seen on MotorWeek.
there's your answer. Hopefully you weren't looking for that we give them away to listeners of our podcast, because unfortunately that's not the case.
Can't even get a T-shirt around here, pal.
Good try, D.
Anyone have a rant or a rave?
I've got a rave.
All right.
All cars are now have to come standard with backup cameras, I believe. So, which is a huge deal to me. I mean, I don't see any downfall of having a backup camera. This is a long time
This is
coming.
a reference.
They've gotten very good. You have so many 360-degree camera systems now. I mean, it's just something that, having driven them for the last 5-6 years, it's just you got to have it, especially when you're in a parking lot.
Amen.
I'm planning on the golf segment about retrofitting your old car to a backup camera as well. using John's SSD.
Yeah, you did one too, didn't you?
Yeah, when I did it, the tech was not quite there. It was more annoying than anything else. But I'm curious to see where it is now.
Yeah, it's probably cheaper and easier than
You
ever
don't have the
before.
guidelines that bend and
Right, I
stuff.
love those.
And it's kind of weird. It's like
The
getting
la-
your eyes dilated.
The last car I drove that didn't have a backup camera was that Mazda Miata we have in right now. It must have been
Struck
like
me
the
as a little
last
weird, too.
one to squeak in under the regulation. I mean, it's a Miata, so it's not that hard to like park and
Like
see.
turn your head a quarter away. and
Right,
see
but
behind
it still felt like a big chore for me when I noticed that.
Oh, yeah.
You're like,
you.
oh,
I gotta
come
turn
on.
my head.
Oh, yeah, really?
So,
All right. That was a good rave, Greg.
Thank you.
I liked
It's
it.
good to know that you're not always
I'll be
just
back
angry
with a
about
rant.
stuff. All right. Well, we'll close it with that. I'd like to thank our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, podcast creator, Bob Mixter, and, of course, producer, Joe Ligo, and all the hardworking MotorWeek staff that bring you the show every week. Be sure to tune in on TV as well as keep up to date with everything online. Thanks for tuning in.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, WeatherTech, Hum by Verizon, RockAuto.com, State Farm, and Autotempest.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.